Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is UnRaid part 4. It's going to be a very short one because I've got so far I can with live streaming, because then the rest is on screen stuff, which I've already done quite a bit, so I'll try and tag that up a bit later up here for you. So when you watch this back, there should be literally up here a tag for it. So first you need a USB memory stick. So that's you need to boot what you need to boot UnRaid from, and I'll show you the details up here how to create a USB stick and make it bootable. Then once you've got that installed, you need to install it into the machine, um, and allow it to boot. So make sure your machine is USB bootable, so you can boot off the USB stick, and it will go through UnRaid. Don't need to do anything because this is very easy to do. You just stick it in there, make sure it's bootable on the memory stick, and UnRaid will actually do all its installing. There's a couple of BIOS changes you need to make. So what I'm going to do on here is, if we just log in quickly, it's going to be, actually I have to do it on here. Bear with 1 sec. So I need to shut this down to show you on the BIOS. Power down. Okay, so power down. Right, it's going to power down. Move this one side a minute. So yeah, so there's a couple of things you need to make on the BIOS changes to make sure if you're going to like build a VM, and then you're going to pass through some of the hardware, so you can have your like virtual machine on a couple of screens, so long as you've got cable distance between your box and that. So this is going to be an UnRaid server, file print and sharing and stuff, but it's going to run a VM on there, which I'm going to output to these screens. We're going to use a dedicated graphics card here to do that with, and this is how you do that. So if you want to if you want to be able to pass all your hardware through to your VM, you need to get these settings correctly done. So we power on the server, and then we hit the delete key to bring up the BIOS screen. So I have to wait a minute, wait for it to do that. So hopefully you can see this. Quite hot in here actually, so that's why I won't do this video for too long. Got the aircon off. So in the BIOS here, there's a couple of things you need to sort of check. I hope you can see that. All right, I'll put it up on there. I don't know how far you can see it, but I will try and do a step-by-step video on this one here. So first of all, you need to make sure all your COATA drives have got pass-through. So I'm using the onboard SATA controller for that. So I have 6 ports on my motherboard. So I make sure they're all enabled. So under the processors thing, we don't need to change any of this. We don't need to change the timings. We leave everything as default. We don't need to change the CPU frequency. We leave it as default again. But under the advanced, there's memory, don't need to worry about. Voltages, again, don't need to worry about. But there is one on here. I'm just trying to remember it now. Go back. It's on the first one, the current status settings, I think it is. No, it's not. It's one of these frequencies. It might be advanced CPU core. This will be this will be different in different machines. So you need to make sure somewhere in your BIOS settings, depending on what motherboard you've got, because it will be different to different manufacturers. You need to make sure that the CPU supports for virtualization. There's different names for it. So I tend to go down here. So most of this you don't need to change. And if you read up in here, it tells you what each one does. So this SVM is enabled, allows AMD virtualization on CPU. So you make sure that's enabled. So that's one thing I need to change, but enable that one. CPU core control is normal. Core state enabled. HPC, high performance computing, is enabled, and it's this one here. I think it's that one. AMP is for enabled as well. I think that's one of them. And there's another one on the hat to enable. Can't remember what it is now. But again, if you read your detailed description of here, it tells you what it's for. There's one specific function on here. It might actually be this actually on here that allows virtualization of CPUs. Secure virtualized mode will let you run multiple OSs guests on the same physical hardware. There, that's that one, and there's one more on here. It might be under another setting because I was going through all these. System. Okay, what till I find out, I'll tell you in a minute. So system information, the ATA port information, make sure they're all enabled. I've got 6 on here. But I've only got 4 drives enabled, so make sure you can see all your drives on there that you want UnRaid to look at. So make sure on that side. BIOS features, one of these here. I make sure my boot devices, I've got two boot options here. The second option I've disabled it, but only allow booting from, and underneath here I selected it as a UEFI scan disk, which is my memory stick in there. I don't point it at a hard drive or anything like that, just the UEFI scan disk, which is obviously my USB stick. So it always boots to that. Basically, it's one thing you need to do. I'm going to click that. Peripherals. So here we go. So on the peripherals, set a controller on, and it's set as AHCI onboard chip port 4 and 5, same as SATA. So again, that's really unique to this motherboard, but yours might be slightly different. Most of these are all on board, USB 3 controller enabled, LAN controller enabled. Some of this is default, so I haven't made any changes to it, but one particular one on here that I have changed is this one, the IOMMU controller. I've enabled it. That allows you to pass through your hardware to any of your VM servers. So if you're going to run multiple graphics cards, so you wanted two virtual machines running on separate screens, this is what you need to be enabled. Then UnRaid will be able to manage it quite well. So you've got to make sure that's done on there. Serial configuration on this one, this allows hot swappable ports enabled. So long as your BIOS can see all your hard drives, so long as it can see all your hard drives, don't enable it in RAID format as well. Because you don't need RAID format on. You just want to be able to allow the BIOS to see all the drives as separate individual disks, because UnRaid will manage that. So make sure your BIOS does that. Once you've got all that done, you click, you obviously save your settings, and now boot off the USB stick. This is quite straightforward because there's no installation setup you have to go through. There's nothing you have to add in and stuff. It just runs through itself. And once it's finished, it'll pick up an IP address up. So make sure you've got your network card installed, and you also got your cable installed. So get this boot screen here. Don't need to change it. Defaults to OS, UnRaid OS. Just goes through this boot process, and you get tons and tons of stuff up in a minute. That's all it's configuring it. It's looking at it looks at all the hardware inside the machine, sets all the drivers for it. And then when it's finished, it'll say login. Once you've got to the login point, it will also show the IP address is actually picked up. You can manually change this and pick the IP address you want, but I always make sure it's on DHCP to start with, so it's easy to find on the network. So it's going through all this sort of process. And right at the end, it should finish in a sec. It shouldn't take too long. I'll show you what it exactly does. On the first one, it might run through a few times before it finishes. That's almost there. And there you go, so that's finished. So it gives you an IP address, where that's IP4. If you've got an IP set, it'll give you an IP address to set. So from this point onwards, you don't need to log in from the console. You can then switch to your PC or your Mac, and you can now actually log in using your web browser. So we'll just quick go in. So type the address in the top here. So it's 172.16.100.18. And straight from there, as you can see on the screen, hard to actually show on the screen, but from here it shows the basic setup for UnRaid and what you need to do the next. So you need to apply for a trial key if you're just going to do a trial, 30-day trial, or if you have got a purchase key, then obviously you put your purchase key in here. Then we can go and start setting up the disks, the RAID, and get it configured as your farm print, and then we can start loading up VM, running a virtual desktop and things like that, which we'll do with more detail very shortly. I won't do this live because it's very difficult to see the screen showing what you need to do, so I'll probably actually screen capture this as a setup and upload this later on YouTube. So that's what you need to do so far. Once I've all done that, come back to this video, and I should have the relevant links of different installs up here for you, and I'll also put them in the description below as well. Any questions you've got until then, give me a shout, send me a comment below. Remember, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button, leave a comment below, and I'll see you on the next video. So thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.